Debt is bad, and here is why I try my best to avoid it at any cost. Debt has become so normal that people very rarely question it. Nowadays people have loans for everything. For their apartments, for their houses, for their mobile phones, for their computers, for their cars, and even for their clothes and food, because nowadays you can always opt out to using buy now pay later scheme, and that's how you end up with a loan on a kebab from your local shop. Which is just crazy to me, to be honest. I was very lucky to be born and raised in the family where debt was considered something bad. From the early childhood, I was said by my parents that I shouldn't be buying things that I cannot afford to buy with my own money, and for me it was just a norm growing up. And they actually were thinking that most of the people live in such a way, right? Because how you can buy something that you do not have money for? Because I just in my childhood wasn't familiar with the concept of how the debt works. I just knew that it was something bad, that I can go somewhere and probably lend the money from the bank, right? And they will charge a huge interest rate or something like that, and then I will have more and more problems just because I bought this phone on a debt, right? Not with my own money. That being said, I wasn't born and raised in a uber rich family or something like that, right? I was born and raised in absolutely normal family, and I was just said to save up my money for the things, and that's what my parents have been telling me since the childhood, as I said. For example, when I was a teenager, I really wanted an iPhone, so I was saving for an iPhone for I think 2 or 2.5 years to buy an iPhone, not the newest one. I bought something like the most basic model, but I was saving for it for years, from the gifts that I was getting for my birthday, from the summer jobs, from these kind of things, you know. I was just saving every penny from my lunches at school, and that's how I ended up affording myself an iPhone. But then growing up, I started to realize that taking out debts is not as hard as I was thinking, right? It's not a scary process. You come to the shop, and when you're 18, they actually offer you to take a loan for everything. When you come to the car dealership, they already want you to take out the loan for it. Because when I was 18 or something, me and my friends started visiting the car dealership just because we got interested in cars. And I was very surprised that at one of the car dealership, when I was 18 years old, they started asking me, maybe I want to take out a car lease for this car, right? And in the shops, when I was, let's say, trying to buy myself a new smartwatch or a phone, right, they were telling me, maybe you want to try to take it in a lease, right? You can lease it for months and years to come. And that's how I realized that taking out loans is very easy. It doesn't requiring you to go to the bank to do some scary process, etc., etc. It's just easy. Everyone wants to give you a loan, everyone wants your money with an interest. But of course I do understand that not all of the debt is bad. Of course there is a debt that can be very great for people and for the economy. I do understand that businesses and countries function because of debt, and that's great, because that is an instrument which you can leverage in the way that you want, right? For example, if you are a businessman and you are taking out a loan from the bank to develop your business, that is great. The businessman is able to accept the risk of taking out loan and maybe defaulting on it later. But he receives an opportunity to develop his business, and if the opportunity will come and if he will be successful, then he can develop even more. Then huge companies of course leverage by taking out debts, by issuing maybe bonds and stuff like that, by borrowing money in different ways, and all of these things are great, because they allow to grow the economy. And by the way, I do think that the mortgage is a great thing that has been created if you are assessing it right. For example, if you have a good down payment and you can buy the real estate in a place where it will be growing in value, I believe that the mortgage can be a very valuable thing for you, right? But not any mortgage, not for any property, right? And that's what I think about debt, that it can be good for some specific people, individuals and businesses, or specific situations in life where normal human beings just cannot afford themselves to buy these things, such as taking out a mortgage, right, for a house, because houses cost that much that most of the people just, it's unbelievable for them to afford it out of pocket, right, because the prices are insane. So that's an acceptable and understandable debt, which makes sense because the real estate also grows in price, etc. You know how the mortgages work. But at the same time, what I'm talking here is the consumer debt and the debt for things which do not grow in value, they just depreciate. And those look very, very acceptable at the first glance, right? As I was saying with the smartphones or with cars, the car loans, this is just insane, you know? You are paying $300, $400, $500 per month, but at the same time you are driving the depreciating asset which can be gone in the car crash in 1 second. Of course there are insurances and stuff like that, but you understand my logic here, right? You are financing a depreciating asset which will be gone in 10 years time, and that is so normal and so acceptable by the society that it's insane, because most of the people are spending that much money on the car payments that they cannot allow themselves to invest this money, to grow in their day-to-day life, right? To afford a better lifestyle, to save up the money. No, they are just going out there and getting another car payment because they want their car to look a little bit nicer, right? The same as taking out loans for any sort of devices, for computers, etc., because most of the people do not need these things in their life, right? Because these things are gonna depreciate, you are gonna pay huge interest on it. Doesn't matter if it's not that huge in absolute numbers, right? Because the asset is not as expensive. I believe that this is taking also an emotional toll on you, and that's what I wanted to talk about, is that any debt, even if it is like leveraged correctly, and even if the person taking out the debt thought about it a lot and it makes sense, etc., but especially the consumer debt, which doesn't make sense, it takes an emotional toll on you, because you are not free. You are actually becoming, in one way or another, a slave to this debt. You reduce your freedom because the debt makes you depend on your future income. And you can say that rent makes me depend on the future income, and you will be right. Of course, you just need to make money in one way or another just to survive in any case, but the debt increases this burden for any human being, and this takes a huge emotional toll on you because you know that you are working just to pay out your debt. And if your debt is for the depreciating asset that, like a car, let's say, you know that you are paying for a thing that you have already enjoyed like a few years ago for a few months, now you are just driving it, paying huge percentages on it, huge interest. For what? Just because you have been impatient and took out a loan for something you cannot really afford. Living without debts provides you huge freedom. And people with more freedom make absolutely different decisions in their life, in their career, and their day-to-day activities. Because if you do not have debt, if you are free, especially from the high interest consumer debt, right, you can make different decisions, you can change your career, you can be more agile, you can risk more in your day-to-day life, you can go out there and try out this new hobby, or try out this new job opportunity, or do things like that. You can actually enjoy your life another way, and on a glance, from the perspective of other people, you will look the same as them, right? But inside you will feel something different, and that's why I'm recording this video, because I believe that debt is bad on you, not only financially and in terms of absolute money, right? You can write down the numbers, you can write down the percentages, you can write down the depreciation and calculate how bad it is for you financially, of course. But I think the most important toll is taken psychologically, because you are just thinking different when you have debt. And that's just how it goes. And the scariest part here is that most of the people are taking out loans, not even because they want to buy these things, but because they want to appear as somebody else to other people. They think that people will judge them because they are driving a bad car, because when they will be driving into the parking lot at their job, the people will think that they are poor, and that's why they actually become poor, by going out there and taking out a loan for a car that they cannot afford. They are afraid that the people will judge them for not having a nice, ring or a watch, and people go out there and take consumer debt to fund the accessory for other people to think that they are rich. They are going out there and funding some luxury clothes even. In many cases, these people do not actually enjoy these things, but they do believe that they need this stuff to impress others, right? To be like other people, and that's the endless cycle. People think that they need this to fit into the society, and the whole other part of the society thinks the same. And the best thing that I learned from my parents, and from most of the people that I respect and that are actually smart and successful in my eyes, they do not want to impress anyone. They wear the clothes that they think fit and they think are good for and comfortable for them. They drive cars that they just like to drive without wanting to impress anyone. And they have some old phones that nobody would care about or even know their name, right? And those are very often the most successful people I know, the quietest people. They do not care about other people's opinion. They do not go into the depth to impress others. They do not go into the depth to impress themselves. They do not have a feeling that they deserve something. That deserving something is also crazy. Imagine you are working a job, you are working hard, and instead of deserving a peace of mind, you go out there and deserve a new debt. You think that you deserve taking out a new debt and paying more interest because you deserve it, because you work hard. So you will have to work harder to pay it back. And in most of the cases, you will be net negative on this debt, right? And that is crazy. And the society, of course, is normalizing debt more and more. I do understand that debt has existed for centuries. People have been taking out debts God knows when, like hundreds and thousands of years ago. Debt is normal. But nowadays, it's becoming very advanced. It's becoming very easy to take out debt. You can do it in an app on a phone in 2 clicks. By sending a message, you can get in debt. And that is the craziest part. That is the craziest part which I think everyone should be alarmed about. And avoiding debt at all costs creates a peace of mind, gives you a choice, gives you an opportunity to choose a better life, to choose a better lifestyle, to do things that you want to do. Not having an unnecessary debt makes your life way, way better. Not only in terms of finances, because it does. If you do not have debts, at least high interest consumer debts, you can invest and this money could grow in value very, very much, and you can actually become wealthy and afford things that you actually want without the debts. And so by not taking loans, you buy yourself, not buy, but just get the peace of mind, which is the greatest thing ever. Not worrying about things, not being worried, just being calm, knowing that everything is under control and that you have savings and maybe some investments, and that if you will lose a job for a month or two, you will be fine and you can change the job. And if the employer is very bad, you can just quit and live happily ever after, until you find the next job. But you have savings to do it, right? That's the best thing. That's way better than a new car or a new phone. Because that's a peace of mind, and you cannot measure it in dollars. No, you can, but you understand what I'm talking about here. And that's it for today. That was my piece, that was my talk, that was my thought about debt. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you did enjoy it. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with me, if you agree with me. Let's discuss this topic, and of course join my Discord server. I will be more than happy to discuss any video of mine with you in it. And thank you once again for watching, and bye for now. We'll see you in my next videos.